I'm taking you over to the United Nations. The United Nations General Assembly has overwhelmingly endorsed a declaration urging concrete steps toward a two-state solution between Israel and the Palestinians, while condemning both Hamas and Israel's military campaign in Gaza. The resolution passed with 142 votes in favor, 10 against, and 12 abstentions, follows a July conference led by Saudi Arabia and France. The United States and Israel boycotted those talks and later rejected the outcome, underscoring their growing isolation on the issue. The declaration denounces Hamas for its October 7, 2023 assault that killed about 1,200 people and resulted in more than 250 hostages. At the same time, it criticizes Israel for strikes on civilians, destruction of infrastructure, and a blockade that has produced severe humanitarian consequences in Gaza. Here lies a critical question. Can peace efforts succeed when both sides are condemned simultaneously? Although this dual framing risks alienating all parties involved. I mean, Israel has been blamed. Hamas has been cautioned too. So who plays the victim? Let's take a listen.
Hamas immediately praised the killers as heroic and exceptional, later claiming full responsibility for the attack and calling the massacre of innocent people a natural response. There is nothing natural about this. It is terror, pure and simple. Today, 48 innocent people are still held hostage by Hamas. Their families live in daily pain. It has been more than 700 days that innocent people have been trapped in Hamas captivity. 700 days of cruelty and abuse. Hamas has used them as bargaining chips, turning their suffering into currency. But let me be clear, there is no immunity for terrorists, not for those who commit it, and not for those who enable it. Israel has agreed to President Trump's ceasefire proposal. We are ready to stop the fighting, but Hamas refuses. They keep the world waiting. They are in no rush, they have the time, indifferent to the human suffering that their delay causes. And who suffers from this refusal? Not the leaders of Hamas, living abroad in the Ritz-Carlton in Doha. They don't suffer, they have the time, but the hostages languishing in their cells and the people of Gaza used as human shields. From the start, Hamas's strategy has been to embed its weapons among civilians. They hide rockets in schools, command centers in hospitals, and tunnels under homes. They put their own people in harm's way, then cry crocodile tears when civilians are hurt. Our fight is with Hamas, not with the people of Gaza, not with the state of Qatar. Israel will continue to take precautions to protect innocent lives. That is the difference between us and those who glorify massacre and terror.
Beyond condemnation, the text calls for the war to end immediately, urges deployment of a UN-mandated stabilization mission, and outlines tangible, time-bound, and irreversible measures toward Palestinian statehood. But how realistic are these steps in the absence of direct negotiations? And who exactly will guarantee their enforcement? The timing of the vote is significant. A gathering of world leaders on September 22nd is expected to bring formal recognition of Palestinian statehood from France, Canada, Australia, Belgium, and Britain. Will this recognition strengthen the legitimacy of the two-state framework, or will it further entrench Israel's resistance and widen the rift with Washington? We see that support for the resolution was strong across Gulf Arab states and much of the global South. In contrast, the US described the measure as a misguided publicity stunt that undermines serious diplomacy. Let's take a look.
Make no mistake, this resolution is a gift to Hamas. It is likewise cynical, transparently driven by the domestic politics rather than a serious foreign policy agenda. As Secretary Rubio has noted, progress in negotiations aimed at achieving a ceasefire over the summer collapsed when one of the states organizing the conference encouraged Hamas's intransigence by announcing its intention to recognize a conjectural Palestinian state. Far from promoting peace, the conference has already prolonged the war, emboldened Hamas, and harmed the prospects of peace in both short and long term. The United States will not participate in this insult to the victims of October 7th.
Meanwhile, Israel dismissed it as one-sided. Let's take a listen.
And the endorsement of this so-called declaration are not a serious attempt at peacemaking. These are procedural tactics, a misuse of this assembly to force through by the back door what cannot stand at the negotiating table. Once again, we see externally drafted texts rushed forward without transparency or any debate in this assembly. This erodes the legitimacy and trust of the UN. This one-sided declaration will not be remembered as a step toward peace, only as another hollow gesture that weakens this assembly's credibility. This is not diplomacy. It is theater, a carefully staged performance for headlines, not for peace. It doesn't shorten the war, it prolongs it.
The contrasting reactions expose a deeper issue. Does the UN still serve as a credible mediator, or has it become a stage for competing political narratives rather than solutions? The October 7 Hamas attack marked a turning point, unleashing a war that has devastated both sides. 1,200 people were killed and hundreds taken hostages in Israel, while more than 64,000 Palestinians, mostly civilians, have died in Gaza since the conflict escalated. It draws our mind to this question on how international community pursue justice for victims of Israel taken hostage by Hamas, while simultaneously addressing the scale of destruction inflicted on Gaza's population. As talks are on and the negotiations are being placed, we hope that the coming days will definitely give a right decision or maybe a space for probably a possible dialogue that would move this forward. Now, taking you over to Nepal. In another development, Nepal's former Supreme Court Justice Sushila Karki has been sworn in as interim prime minister following a wave of violent anti-corruption protests that toppled the government recently. The 73-year-old became the first woman to lead the Himalayan nation after a deal was reached between President Ramchandra Paudel and protest leaders. Her appointment was confirmed Friday evening in Kathmandu. More than 50 people were killed in clashes with security forces during mass demonstrations that erupted after the government imposed a ban on social media platforms. Although the ban was lifted, anger over corruption and nepotism had already escalated into a nationwide movement. Protesters stormed parliament and other government buildings earlier this week, forcing Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to resign. Let's take a look.
They're now trying to get into, I don't know, I believe it must be some government office or the bar.
Parliament was dissolved late Friday with fresh elections scheduled for March 5, 2026. Karki is expected to appoint a cabinet in the coming days. Widely respected for her integrity, Karki faces significant challenges, including restoring order, rebuilding damaged institutions, and addressing demands from the Gen Z-led protest movement, as we have just seen. She must also oversee investigations into the violence that left Kurds dead and ensure accountability for those responsible. Karki's appointment followed negotiations mediated by the army chief. Supporters of youth-driven movement have welcomed her selection as a step toward political change in Nepal. Born into a politically connected family, Karki rose through the legal profession to become Nepal's Chief Justice in 2016, though her tenure was marked by controversy, including an impeachment attempt. Meanwhile, the country remains under heavy military presence as authorities work to stabilize the situation. The protests, initially triggered by the social media ban, were fueled by wider frustration over corruption scandals and the privileges of political elites, particularly highlighted in the recent Nepo Kid campaign online.